Hello, everybody, and welcome to another episode of Kev's Movie Corner. I am Kev, and this week we are talking about The Treasure of the Sierra Madre. This movie was released in 1948. It stars Humphrey Bogart as Fred Dobbs, Walter Huston as Howard, and Tim Holt as Curtin. Brief synopsis of this from IMDb is two down-on-their-luck Americans searching for work in 1920s Mexico convince an old prospector to help them mine for gold in the Sierra Madre Mountains. This movie was enjoyable. It's an interesting. It's kind of interesting. I don't remember exactly what it's classified as. Let's see here. It's considered a neo-western, according to Wikipedia, which for some reason, adventure drama, western, tragedy is what IMDb has for their list here. But anyway, it stars Humphrey Bogart as Dobbs. You kind of start out the movie following him in a town in Mexico where he's asking other Americans for money to eat and just kind of live, because he's living on the streets. He has nothing. He eventually comes across Holt, and they start kind of talking together and spending time together. And then they were one night staying in in like a hostel type place. A cheap place where a bunch of kind of people that are down on their luck go to sleep, where they can get a cot. And they come across Howard, who is an older man in this, and he talks about going out and finding gold and searching for gold, and it piques their interest, and they decide that they're gonna get him to go look for gold and try to make money, which is what they do. They pull together a few $100s, and they go up into the mountains. At the end, you learn that they're actually up there for 10 weeks, mining, digging for gold, and separating it from the rocks and everything. And then that's when the whole kind of adventure. The adventure's going on till then, but that's the first part of the movie is kind of a slow pace until you get to this. This is where they start coming at odds with each other. Mostly Dobbs. He starts to not trust the other two. He starts to go crazy, thinking that they're trying to steal his money. He starts to get paranoid, and threatens the other two. And this is all happening while they're still, trying to dig for gold and make it back with a good amount of money so that they're not broke anymore. It's a interesting process, because the Howard at the beginning, the Walter Huston's character, talks about how money changes people, especially when you're looking for gold. It changes people. First they're happy with whatever they can get, and then they start getting greedy, and they start going crazy and stuff like that. And that's even though at the beginning Dobbs says, well, that would never happen to me. Of course, that's exactly what happens to him. He's the one that starts to get paranoid and go crazy and fight with the other two. Eventually they decide that they've gotten enough money, and they clear up everything that they were doing, and start to head back down the mountain to cash in on all the gold that they've gotten. Well, actually, before that happens, they come into contact with another prospector who's looking for gold, and then a group of bandits who try to who want to steal their weapons and basically kill them. So they get into a gunfight with the bandits, which are the same bandits that had tried to attack their train when they were heading to this area to go prospecting. So that's kind of the tie-in with those people. Eventually, the fourth prospector came in. He would only been there for a few minutes in the movie, but he gets killed in the shootout, and the other three decide that it's time to pack up and take their money back. And on the way, Howard gets pulled aside to help a tribe, and there's a little side plot that goes on there. So then it's just Dobbs and Curtin, and Dobbs at this point is starting. He's becoming more and more paranoid about what's happening. He thinks that Howard is just leaving them to take care of this, and then is going to wait for him. And he talks about stealing his money, and Curtin doesn't agree, so they have a little out over several days when they're traveling, and Dobbs ends up trying to shooting him and trying to kill him, and then taking all the money for himself. Curtin ends up making it to the injured, makes it to the tribe that Howard is at, and Dobbs goes on alone, and he gets confronted by the same bandits that have already attacked him twice. So that's an interesting little, again, thing that happens with him. They end up... So he had already tried to kill Curtin and tried to play it off in his head like, oh, nobody will ever find him, whatever. And he basically gets what's coming to him, because the bandits end up killing him for the mules or burros that he has, and take them in and try to sell them in town. At this point, Howard and Curtin are following him, trying to catch up with him, because they realize that he's going to try to steal all the money, which is about which to them, they say at the time, it's $105,000 in gold. So in today's money, that is let's see here, 1920. Let's see. Today, that would be worth $1.6 million. So a chunk of change. A little over $1.65 million. So a chunk of change for sure. But anyway, they finally catch up to the town and the bandits. They come into town where they are as soon as they're being executed for stealing the burros, because the town that they go back to is the one where the men originally bought them, and the sellers realize what's going on, and they call the police, and the police execute the three bandits who had made it back. And when they get into town, the salesman who sold them the burros says, "Oh yeah, I have all your stuff. It's in here." And they go and find it, and there's no gold. So there's just a bunch of hides, which they had used to hide the gold on the animals while they were traveling. One of the kids there says that he heard the bandits talking about the gold, saying that they thought it was sand to weigh down the burros to make them to make the hides more valuable, thinking that there was more there. And they realize that where they left them, they run out to there, and they realize that there's no more gold, that the bandits had broken up the bags, had cut open the bags and poured them out. So the gold is just all over the ground now. And it basically has gone back to, Howard says it's gone back to where it came from. And they just kind of laugh about it. And Howard goes back to the tribe where he had actually saved a little kid, and becomes a medicine man, or that's what he says he's going to do, because that'll keep him alive forever, keep him protected and happy, because they'll give him pretty much whatever they want, because they believe he's a healer. And Curtin, Howard tells Curtin to go to back to the States, where the fourth prospector who we talked about a minute ago, who came in very shortly for this. They had learned earlier that his widow and children lived in Texas, and he's going to go back there and meet them and help with the fruit harvest, which he talks about after making his money, going to grow peaches somewhere and just live a nice life. So it kind of ends in a nice way with those two moving on, but it ends right there. Like it's very just kind of it. Again, Dobbs is no longer around. The other two kind of are just like, well, we're not any worse than we were when we started this, because we were broke then and we're broke again. But it's a nice story. It seems to tell that to me anyway, that greed won't always get you anywhere, and whatever goes around comes around. If you go out and be a terrible person, then it's gonna come back to bite you in the tuchus. Yeah. So this movie was about right at about 2 hours long. I've talked about before that one of the things that I rate these on is how many times I stop it to see how much longer is left. I didn't ever stop this one, but I did look at the clock several times, because there were several times when it kind of seemed like it was dragging a little bit. The acting was very good. Obviously, Humphrey Bogart's a big name that people are going to know from a lot of other films. I'm not a huge, even though I'm watching these and I pretend to be, I play a movie critic on YouTube, I don't actually know most of these other names on here. And I'm not going to say that it's a stacked cast, but I also don't know, so I can't. Let's see, what else has Walter Huston been in? There were none. Okay, those are not movies that I have ever seen, so that's and Tim Holt. I feel like I've heard the name Tim Holt before, but that doesn't also necessarily mean anything. Treasures of Your Madre, Stagecoach, My Darling Clemente, and The Magnificent Ambersons. I've never seen any of those either. So, yeah. So, obviously, The Treasures of Sierra Madre is one of the ones on both of their IMDb pages, but Humphrey Bogart I've obviously heard of, and I've seen him in other films that I've watched for this as well. This movie is based on a 1927 novel of the same name by B. Travins. It was a John Huston, the guy who wrote this, also wrote The Maltese Falcon, or shortly after the release of The Maltese Falcon. Yeah, okay, so interesting. I did like The Maltese Falcon, probably better than this one, so I have heard of him before, or I have seen other things that he's done before. This won 3 Academy Awards, Best Director and Best Screenplay, along with Best Supporting Actor for Walter Huston. So Walter and John Huston won all 3 of the Oscars for this movie. John Huston, again, was the director, and Walter is actually his father. After this, he said that working with his father on this picture, which his dad won an Oscar for, was among the favorite moments of his life. And one of the other things about this that I realized is there's a line in here when towards the end, when one of the bandits makes the comment, where is it exactly here? Badges, we ain't got no badges. We don't need no badges. I don't have to show you any stinking badges. So I've heard that before. It was also popularized, an abbreviated version of it was also became popular or part of pop culture in the 70s, 1974, when Blazing Saddles came out, because Mel Brooks used it in that comedy western that he made, where two of the bad guys, or one of the bad guys, says, "Badges, we ain't got no stinking badges, so, or we don't need no stinking badges." So this was actually came from the book, the 1927 book, The Treasure of the Sierra Madre. Um, and it's been used, obviously, in a bunch of different things. It's been used in SNL and just about every movie. You don't, one of the pages that I saw on it says that it's pretty much at this point where you just put the word stinking in front of anything, and that's what it becomes. So this is where that originated from, which I did not, I obviously didn't realize because I've never seen this movie, but I did know the line well, I knew the line sounded familiar as soon as he said it. So obviously this is one of the earliest movies that would have been able to capitalize on this, and one of the earlier movies that would have been able to capitalize on this, and it's from the book, which I did not realize. But yeah, anyway, this movie was pretty good. It's not probably something I will ever watch again. But if you like adventure movies, Western type movies, this is something good to watch. It's something that you might find interesting. Most of these, I'm not one to, there's very few movies that I can't stand or despise. Most of the time, I see it as, well, even if I didn't like it, it was only a couple hours of my life. It didn't really hurt anything. So, take that into account if you listen to any of my ratings on things like this, because if it's a fine movie. Again, I'm not ever going to watch it again. I'm not going to say that it's not for you. It's a Western, it's an adventure kind of, drama-filled story. So, take with that what you will. But anyway, I think that's it for this week. Next week, we're watching Midnight Cowboy from 69. So if you liked this, go ahead and watch that, and join me next week, and I will talk to you then.